And hoping the volume, hoping the volume's working. We're just gonna leave it as is. I'm not recording from where I normally record from, so pardon me, missing some important things that I would normally. But we're here. It's gonna work. And can I say, I almost did not make it today. At 3:30, maybe. I eventually got out of bed, so very deep sleep until about that time. Are not you're choosing, and that has made me even think about for this morning of in bed longer and consistency. And I know I'm not alone in this. Consistency has been so hard for me, specifically 2025, to show up, to do all the things, to like be in this creative space. It has just been super challenging for me. More, oh gosh, more than I would have imagined. And once again, I know I'm not alone in that. Some of you might be feeling that way as well. But to kind of go into that expression, or what we'll be talking about, what you aren't changing, you're choosing, is so important, because we can have challenges come up in our lives and in our worlds, or circumstances that come up in your life that can knock you down. Or perfect example, just like feeling didn't have the best sleep, so just wanting to not show up. And you don't want to force yourself to do things as well, but then at the same time to be really aware of, yeah, of how committed you are to yourself, your dreams, your visions, just life in general. Hello. And in all of these situations, so this is even what we're saying about what you're not changing, you're choosing, taking ownership and responsibility and accountability to yourself and to your life, because you can be in different situations. And perfect example where I was saying it's like been very hard to be consistent for me, and 2025 has just been very challenging year to show up for, yeah, for friends, for business, for all of it, which has felt very out of character, to be quite honest. But at the same time, we have to be responsible for our choices. We have to take accountability for ourselves too, even if you're going through harder times. And so often, you know, you could be in a job that you're not liking, or a career that you're not liking, and and sometimes there can be like this tendency to complain, or be like microphone, to complain, or just be frustrated with it. And once again, yes, you got to pay bills, you got to live your life, we live in that world. But what can you do in those situations to even like come to a place of peace and acceptance of, maybe you're not liking your career, maybe you don't like that job, acknowledging it, accepting it, but then also not necessarily taking it on as a prison sentence, right? If you're not happy there, what can you do in the interim to create a sense of joy, a sense of peace, a sense of contentment? What can you do in the interim where you might stay in that career, you might stay in that job, but you haven't just, choosing to stay and perhaps being frustrated about it, complaining about it, but then not making any change. Like we have to be accountable to ourselves. Hello, we have to be accountable to ourselves. Like there's that expression, life is what you make it, and it's so true. Everything is a choice. Like if we just boil it all down to the simplest form, everything is a choice. Sometimes we are in circumstances where it might not feel like you have a lot of choices or options, but at the same time, in terms of how we feel, you get to choose how you feel. We don't want to negate the feelings of frustration. We don't want to negate the feelings of um, feeling uncontent. But what moments or what areas within life can you find joy? What moments in life can you ask for peace and become that peace? And so often it's just so easy to talk about all the things that aren't working and how you wish things would be different. But once again, like, if things aren't changing on your end, even the way that you're looking at them, nothing's going to change. And then you might find, then you might find yourself in these cycles where you feel trapped, you feel lost, you feel frustrated that nothing is changing. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but everything that is not changing, you are choosing. Yes, the burnout is a serious thing. And, there's an element of ownership that comes through that acknowledgement, and sometimes that can be tricky for folks. I know for myself, in different situations, when I was in a separation in 2023, oh my God, like, I played the blame game. Oh my goodness, like, I sometimes I'm embarrassed to like even say that, but like I gotta be straight up. It was always them. I pointed the finger at them, on and on and on. If this would be different, if this changed, if that changed. But really, like, if nothing's changing, you're choosing it. You can have conversations with someone about what you need, what you'd like for the future. But if that's not met, if nothing shifts, then you essentially are choosing to move forward in the same thing, right? And that can be a hard pill to swallow when you look at certain situations in your life and what, and this is the accountability part, you're choosing it. Sometimes you might not know you're choosing it, but could we say, if you're in these loops and these cycles and it feels like you keep going around and around on the merry-go-round and nothing is shifting, and once again, like, hard pill to swallow, I've been there, you might be the common denominator in that. I know. So then what can you do? And I'm going to say I have brought prayer into my life daily, praying daily. And that has maybe not shifted the circumstances the way, you would like or envision. Sometimes they can. I could almost feel him working on my fear. We're back. Working on my fear. We're back. But I could feel here. We're back. But I could feel. But I could feel. Actually, wrote it on. You know, we're having some disturbance. um, yeah, maybe you're not speaking your truth, or you're just not, fully. Yeah, there's video technical difficulties. I'm finding it interesting that it started happening, talking about Jesus. Not surprised. Um, I'm just reading the comments. You feel like a sitting duck and you're on disability, but you're not just still, you're soaking the presence, producing fruits. Yeah, getting involved. Well, and we have to honor where we are too. You have to honor where you are in life. Like, um, for myself, where I was saying 2025 has just been, whew, it has been a hard year to show up. Um, but it's been like the last couple years, just there's been so much changing going on within, my life, and the way that I view the world, the way that I want to be of service has been changing, which has also been conflicting for how to be in the world and to show up in the world. And yeah, there's just been a lot of dismantling. You know, where we go through that alchemical process where everything is just being taken apart to be reformed into perhaps, you know, the most optimal version of you, the most optimal expression of you, and how you're in the world. And I find, um, yeah, mine has been around service, primarily around service, because yeah, I've had a career for over 10 years as a spiritual guide and mentor, and helping people connect with themselves on a spiritual level, and develop a spiritual connection. However, my perspective on God has changed a lot, and that started in about 2023, like that overall source of God, and it's been a journey, and people get triggered by it, and it is what it is. People definitely get triggered by Jesus, and that is also what it is. But yeah, it is the unraveling, the undoing, the becoming, which is what this series is called. And we do have to honor where we are. So if you haven't physically been able to be active in the ways that you want, or involved in the ways that you want, it's where I'm saying honoring that. Sometimes we can get trapped in that too, right? Like where I was saying, for me, 2025, ooh, consistency has been rough, 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 rough. Because my heart's been changing. You know, the passion has been shifting, but at the same time, that kind of turned into a trap. That had me feeling stuck or frozen, or just the movement forward. It's like seeing these different directions to go, but then, like, for my own self, I could feel myself holding myself back. Because we can do that, but then how are we being of service? You know, you don't have to have a career helping people to be of service. It's like you you in that authentic state is being of service. So even where we were talking about the things that aren't changing, you're choosing. So let's say you're in a career, you have a job that you don't like, you might be frustrated, you might, like, you know, talk about the frustrations a lot, but where can you find some sort of glimmer of peace and contentment? Maybe it's not in the job, right? Maybe it's not in the job, but where can you find a source of glimmer or peace in any aspect of your life, even within yourself, right? Even within yourself. Yes, Jesus can be very triggering. When you were a Jesus freak, you had no problem. I've experienced him many times, but now I'm in a place where there is this resistance in his name. Yeah, well, there can be resistance in the name. Yeah, I definitely had my inner battles or inner turmoil about even starting to share about him and to speak about him and talk. Microphone. Like I said, I'm not recording where I normally do, and talk about him, because yeah, there's such a charge to it. And once again, like, this has been a lot of contention for me with my path of service and my business, because it has been more in the, I don't even want to call it new age, but in that realm, and there seems to be a very active charge with it, but I get it. I get it, because that was me too. So I don't know. I just feel like, even talking about that glimmer, can you find a glimmer of joy or peace? Like, prayer is so powerful. And once again, it might not change everything in that moment, but at least you're giving yourself that opportunity to open. You could even ask, if you're in those situations, like, you can ask God for support, saying, I need help right now, you know? Please show me the next steps. God, I'm open to receive what you have for me. That's a huge thing. being open to receive. God, I'm open to receive where you're guiding me. God, I'm open to receive the path that you have before me. And it might surprise you where you're put. you, you might be put in places you never would have imagined, or taken, different on different journeys that you just never would have imagined. Yes, and soaking in God's presence. Where you don't even have to do anything, just like sitting or laying almost in like a meditative state, right? And just asking God to be with you, asking Jesus to be with you, receiving prayer. Yes, Joshua, is so beneficial to have that support. um, I'm remembering, and you know what, I've probably been there too. This is just kind of coming up in my mind where I had a friend. We're not really connected anymore, but yeah, I don't know. I just remember every time I spoke to them, like nothing was going right. Like every phone conversation, like to be quite honest, sometimes when you're like dreading talking to someone, you're like, oh, I'm their friend, so I'm gonna answer the phone, but like, and maybe I've been there too. So it's not like coming from a judgmental place. It's just to share, and I do remember it just nothing was ever positive when we talked together. Things were always going wrong in their life, and it just it felt yeah, it was defeating at times, because you would try to like bring in other more positive perspectives to it, but it was like sometimes people are addicted to their pain, sometimes people are addicted to drama, sometimes people are addicted to stories. Once again, like, I'm sure I've been there, absolutely. and and sometimes you could share with someone, well, this is what keeps happening, and this is what you're choosing, so nothing different is going to happen if that's the cycle and that's the loop that you're in. Yes, trauma addiction, absolutely. So it's even like having awareness of that. You can be there for people and you can support people, but once again, if they are addicted to those cycles of pain, if they're addicted to those cycles of trauma, if they're addicted to those limiting beliefs, right? They could be trapped in limiting beliefs that that's just the way life is, and no matter what, it's not going to change. And once again, you can be a guiding light for someone, but they might not be able to get there. They may not be able to get there. And I had oh, there's a mama deer and a baby deer over there. They're so cute. Um, I had a session the other day. When was it? Yeah, the other day. And sometimes the answers are so simple. So could we just say this? Sometimes the answers are so simple. Um, if we are repeating the same cycles and the same patterns, nothing is going to change. This is why it's that expression, what is not changing, you are choosing. I sound like a broken record with this, but if you keep doing the same things, you are the common denominator in that situation. It could be playing out involving other people. Other people might be involved with it. However, if you are on repeat in these cycles and these patterns, expecting, so this is like the tricky part, expecting it to be different, it's not going to be different. I don't even know how to spell this out. There is no possible way for it to be different unless the external factors help to support making that different. And once again, like, to really look at that, to look at yourself, to look at the patterns, to look at the cycles. And sometimes you might not see another way, right? And I know this can happen a lot, where you just feel Like there's no other choices, or there are other choices. There could we say there's always another way? There's always another way, but the other ways might be really uncomfortable. What is, I'm just seeing the comments, narcissistic virus, choosing not to reflect and or take responsibility. Yeah, that feels like an epidemic for sure. Yeah, we have to take responsibility. Well, we don't have to. We have free will. We don't have to take accountability. We don't have to take responsibility. But then at the same time, if that's not happening, then you don't necessarily get to stand scratching your head wondering why things keep repeating themselves, why things aren't changing, right? Because nothing can change until you choose differently. So I'm being brought back to 2023 when I was in separation. My partner at the time was an alcoholic. Um, they had been going through treatment, but you know, there's all of these other underlying issues, which I won't get into, and things from their story. But um, needless to say, they were not able to break free from the addiction, and for me, that was such a big breaking point. It's like, okay, so if the alcohol's gone, it'll be fine. Like, I, and creating that change. But in that moment where nothing was changing and we were in the loops, we were stuck and trapped in the loops. I realized, even though, you know, I was blaming a lot at that time, now totally different story, able to take accountability. When you're in your hurt and your pain, you might not be able to see what you're also doing, or you might not be able to have compassion for other people that are suffering or hurting, or you know, when you're in your hurt and your pain, it could be easier to blame, right, and to look outside of yourself. However, in that moment when I realized I have to go, like this is not healthy for either of us, I had that light bulb moment of how can they choose something differently if I'm not choosing something differently? Because it was being in this loop and this cycle, and we just like wind up at square one again. I'm like, this is not the life that I want. This is not where I want to be, and things need to change. You know, like wow, things need to change. Like so heated about it, but then I wasn't choosing anything different. In that situation, I kept choosing to stay. Nothing was changing. So how could they choose differently? You know, like it was almost impossible. They could have, but just to look at it differently, and then you get to, you know, go in directions that are maybe more healthy and supportive. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy because you know, sometimes you don't know what what's on the other side of that. You know, you even for that career example, you don't know what the next job is going to be like. You don't know where it's going to take you. But then we also have to have that element of faith as well. And you know, maybe in the job or career, are there conversations that need to happen? Maybe you're not happy, you're not feeling appreciated or valued, and there could be fear about speaking up. Maybe your boss doesn't even know that's going on for you. So to look at that, where can you take responsibility and accountability for yourself and the interactions that you have? Because people, I've come to learn this, being an intuitive that can pick up on a lot of things. People aren't mind readers. Just so for so long with my life, I'm just like, oh yeah, you can't read my mind. Not, you know, not that I was reading their minds, but it's just like telepathy's not a thing. So we have to speak. We have to use our voices. Um, Oh, yeah, the video games. The video games and the repeating cycles, and then you get the secret exit. Yes, there's always another way. So if someone is telling you there is no other way, if you are telling yourself There is no other way. There is another way. You just might not like that other way. You might not know that other way. That other way could be unknown, but there is always another way. We're not we're not limited, even though there can be limitations. We're not limited. But it takes courage. It takes courage and bravery and faith to choose something different too, and perhaps initiate the changes that are required to have something different. And once again, really honoring yourself and where you're at and what you need in each moment. But I truly believe that we all have that divine spark in us. And I'm even getting teary. Because, okay, yeah, I'm getting emotional because we all have that in us. And there's so many brothers and sisters out there that don't see it within themselves, that don't remember that they have it. And that breaks my heart. That breaks my heart. So we all have this divine spark. We're all here to be the light in the world. And yes, life can be challenging. There can be hardships that come up. There can be, so many things that are going on in our world, and just like our world, and then our worlds and our lives. But it's so important to not forget that connection to the divine that we all have in us. And how can we be that in the world? And it doesn't involve doing anything. Like, I just have to stress that. How can we be that in the world? To be kind and loving, to show grace, to show compassion. Yeah, we're human. We're human. So there can be times where you're short or angry with someone, or you say something and you're like, "Oops, shouldn't have said that," or childish, whatever happens. But at the end of the day, it's just like, how could we be that more in the world? And it doesn't really require doing anything, because it's who we are. We all hunger and thirst for God, but it's lost in translation. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so simple. I think one of the things that has been the most comical and hard to wrap my mind around, honestly, is that God is so simple. God is so simple. Talking to God is so simple. Being in the presence of God is so simple. And it's been made to be very complicated, and even, like the stories and the beliefs and everything, the programming, where I was saying we all have that divine spark in us, and we all have that connection to God. We all have that connection to the divine. Like, we do have, once again, brothers and sisters out here in the world that don't believe that they can talk to God, that they don't believe God is there for them, and you don't. Oh my gosh, it's so simple. You just go into your heart, like breathe into your heart, and say, God, I'm here. That's talking to God. We don't have to ask for things. You can prayer. You can ask for things. You can be grateful for things, but it's opening up that communication. It's like picking up the phone. Hey, but through your heart. Hey, God, I'm here. And that hurts my heart too, where people don't believe that they can talk to God, or they don't believe God is there for them. And God never leaves you or turns their back on you. God is always there, even in those hard moments. Yeah. Oh, and there's so much maturing that happens for us. I know, so I'm saying it's so simple. It, it just it feels like common sense, but truthfully, there's those elements of, God's character that until really opening up my heart and my life to building a relationship with Jesus, they weren't there. I thought they were there. So that was a humbling experience, to realize they weren't there. And Joshua, I'm seeing your comment, still much more maturing on your part. Absolutely. Like, me too. Many of us, I'm sure. Woo, many of us. Um, yeah, but it's just, I find that when you allow yourself to open up to that love and that presence, you do become transformed and everything changes. But it doesn't change overnight. And that's the whole thing too. So what you're not changing, you're choosing. So what about beliefs that you have? Like there's so, oh my gosh, with clients, there's so often beliefs. It's like these beliefs that are implanted. It's like in their subconscious, in their family line, even like we could talk soul, but there's just these beliefs that they've grown up with. Like, let's say finances. For example, maybe you grew up in a household where it's a struggle to get money. You got to work really hard to get money. Money doesn't come freely. Money doesn't come easy. On and on and on. You got to work, 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 work. Like that's the belief, and then it just gets passed down, and then now you're here in your life, in your reality, with those stories. But that might not be your truth. Like, what if for you abundance and money and finances flows freely to you? You don't have to slave away. It's not to say that you're not into working hard, but you don't have to slave away to have financial wealth. You don't have to be a slave to money, like that could be your reality, even though what you grew up with, it wasn't. So even looking at beliefs, do you have those beliefs that are telling you that? What about love and relationships? Love hurts. Is that a belief that you have? And so now you're walking around in the world of, well, it wasn't love if it didn't hurt. So to look at these beliefs and stories that you might not know are there, and even asking God to search your heart. What beliefs do you have that are imprinted in you, known or unknown, that are interfering with the divine plan for your life? And asking these questions. And awareness is key. Once you see it, once you know it, you don't have to understand it, but once you're aware of something, that's the first step to creating change. Once again, we have free will. We have free will. You can change or not. You can keep doing the same thing, hoping, wishing, praying something different's going to happen or not. Oh, it's such a trip being a human. But yeah, so once you become aware of something, oh, you see your part, you acknowledge, this is my part in this. Now, what can you do to shift it? What can you do to shift it? And I'm just going to go back to that example where I was talking about that friend that, we're not really connected as much anymore. But every phone call, like I did start to get a bit of anxiety when they'd call of, oh, because every time, just it was, nothing was working over and over and over. And I do believe we had a conversation, and eventually, because eventually I think it just got into like a tough love thing. And I appreciate when people give me tough love, maybe not in the moment. It's like, could you have been a little bit more delicate with that? But ultimately at the end of the day, you need to hear it sometimes a little bit more abrupt. So I think we even got into a conversation of, like, if this is how you feel, you need to speak. You need to say something. Nothing is going to change if you don't say something, in a very direct way. So just to look, to, like, once again, being accountable for yourself and your life. Yes, do we have this universal support? Do we have a divine plan? Do we have God's will running the show for us? Absolutely. And then we have free will. So, perfect example, if you are in situations that are toxic to your mental health, oh, you can do a 360. Yes, toxic to your mental health, your physical health, like just, like these work environments. This comes up so often with clients that are in transitionary spaces with work. So if you're in these toxic work environments, yeah, you could be the light in that place. God, Source Divine, could have put you in that place to be the light. But maybe for a period of time, right? Maybe you're not meant to be the light in that environment the whole time. And so to really look at that too. What lessons are you learning about honoring yourself, your needs, your physical health, your mental health? How are you supporting yourself in that? Boundaries. There's so many, you know, lessons that we could be looking for when we're in these situations. But that's the whole thing. When you become aware of it, that's when that's the initiation, so to speak, to choose something different, to choose to create the change, not to have the awareness about it, sit with it, and then have multiple examples reminding you and then to continue to not choose to change things. So to also remember that. Have you ever found in situations like, for example, you know you're not supposed to be there. You're just like, ooh, this is not the best place to be. Shouldn't be here. And you get all of these beautiful reminders from the universe, God, um, that, oh yeah, no, shouldn't be here. And then you keep staying, but then the volume gets turned up. Or as I like to say, the heat gets turned up. It's like those refining fires. It's like, oh, how much heat has to get turned up without you completely becoming consumed by the flames? How much heat gets turned up before you choose something differently? And sometimes we literally, and I have been there so many times, more times than I would like to admit, to be quite honest. I have been in situations where it's just like back against the wall, nowhere else to go, and then it's like, okay, I'm gonna jump because there's a, or where you're on the edge of a cliff. just just get to push, 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 and you could have took many different exits, or Joshua, even like the where you were saying the secret exit. Oh, red flags everywhere. Yes. Just red flag here, red flag there. Oh, here's like 10 red flags. And I'm laughing because it's just so fun. Once you like get out of situations and you're like, oh my goodness, gosh, you were speaking, God was speaking in so many ways. It's like, oh, you're like wearing red flags because they just keep getting thrown at you and still not still not changing things. But eventually it will happen. And I can't stop laughing about it because it's just it's so comical to me because I've been there. And I even, I know so many of us have been. Oh my God. I know so many of us have been. Because there's fear of the unknown. What seems to be the main factor, like for myself personally, and then like many people that I've worked with, it's the unknown. The red flags, even though they are freaking red flags to the max, that's what you know. The red flag is what you know. The red flag can sometimes be the familiar, and then the opposite of that is the unknown. But this is the whole thing too. It's like, I'm even thinking of that. Oh, bless the like the the bullfighting thing where they have, isn't that interesting though? It's like they're waving that red fabric at the bull and it charges at them, but a spear comes. Isn't that like what? What? That's exactly what happens. They're instigating the bull to come charge at them, but the bull doesn't know behind that red fabric is a spear, and it's gonna get. And that happens though to us with the red flags. You know, that happens to us with the red flags, and absolutely, the presence of God is the unfamiliar. Thank you, Joshua. So true. And the whole thing is you're shown what is not of God, right? When you're in those situations, you're shown what is not of God. You are shown what is not the most supportive for you, but it is supportive to you in a way, right? There's some sort of payoff or trade-off for staying in situations or for continuing to choose the things that are not changing. Like there is some sort of payoff one way or another, whether you're aware of it or not, that's kind of keeping you in those cycles and those loops. But because we don't know what's in the unfamiliar, it just feels safer, quote unquote safer, to stay in the familiar. But is it? Is it? Oh, red flag and sword. Okay, swords, maybe not spears, but you know what I'm saying? So to just think of, even though you might know the outcome, even though you might not know the outcome, even though, once again, it takes courage. It really does. It takes courage to walk away, so to speak, walk away from everything that you've ever known. But you're not, I'm saying walk away, but it's walking towards. You just don't know what you're walking towards. But could we say perhaps you're walking towards God and that divine plan for your life that is nothing compared to all of those red flags and to all of those cycles that are keeping you feeling trapped. And you might feel like you're trapped. But if we're going to be accountable for ourselves and our lives, right? That's a choice. For me, where I'm saying 2025 has been the hardest year to be consistent and to like even show up for my business in different way. I'm loving the Becoming series and Heart Path podcast. I'm enjoying those. Like that has my heart. That's not an income though. Like these are passion projects that I love doing. Like I love doing them and I want to show up, you know, like that's something different. But all of the other things, like how I make my money, no drive, no passion, no desire. And that's been really, really hard to not want to be consistent, to not want to show up, and then not. But I'm starting to feel more comfortable in my, well, I want to say in my relationship with God and my trusting of that. It takes courage to walk into the unfamiliar, spirit, religion, and carnal. People don't like what they aren't familiar with. It's so true. Yeah, it's so true. But how will you know if you never try? Like, just seems like such a simple question. But once again, it's so simple. I think we just really have to remember it's so simple. And can we let our yeses be a yes and our noes be a no? That's so simple. So simple. And once you know that, how can you act accordingly? Right? Yeah, I feel like we'll leave it at that. As always, lovely to connect with you. We will be back next Monday. I don't think I came last week. I don't think that happened. Once again, the consistency thing. I'm in a different place than I would normally be filming. But I do love to have these conversations and to spend time together. So wishing you a wonderful week of your becoming and being that light in the world. And we will see you next week. Lots of love. Mwah. Bye.